Identity is not something you discover later in life. It is something you declare and then prove through repetition. Every human being is constantly manifesting, not because they know how, but because identity automatically shapes perception, behavior, and decision-making. What you repeatedly tell yourself you are becomes the lens through which you see opportunities, threats, and possibilities. The mind does not wait for evidence first. It accepts identity first, and then looks for proof to support it. This is why two people can live in the same environment and experience completely different realities. Their identities filter the same world in opposite ways. When a person says, "I am weak," their body learns hesitation, their voice softens, their posture collapses, and their actions unconsciously avoid challenge. When a person says, "I am capable," their nervous system prepares for effort, their eyes stay forward, and their mind looks for solutions instead of excuses. Nothing mystical happens here, yet everything changes. Identity gives instructions to the subconscious, and the subconscious controls habits, reactions, and emotional responses long before logic intervenes. Most people try to change their lives by forcing new habits without addressing identity. They try discipline while still identifying as lazy. They try confidence while still identifying as insecure. This creates internal resistance. The mind will always defend identity over goals. If your goal says success but your identity says failure, identity will win every time. This is why affirmations fail when they are spoken without embodiment. Words spoken without belief create friction. Identity spoken with alignment creates momentum. The phrase "I am" is powerful not because of sound, but because of ownership. It removes distance between you and the state you choose. I want to be calm places calm in the future. I am calm demands calm behavior now. The body responds immediately. Breathing slows. Muscles release. The brain shifts from survival to regulation. Identity brings the future into the present through action. Reality does not respond to motivation. It responds to consistency. Identity creates consistency because it simplifies choice. When you know who you are, decisions become easier. A disciplined person does not debate waking up early. A focused person does not argue with distractions. A grounded person does not need to win every conversation. They act according to identity, not emotion. This is how identity quietly reshapes reality day by day. The danger lies in unconscious identity. Many people walk through life repeating inherited labels without questioning them. Labels given by parents, teachers, society, or past failures become internal commands. Once accepted, they operate automatically. The mind does not care whether an identity is helpful or harmful. It only cares whether it is familiar. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. To change reality, identity must be chosen deliberately, not inherited passively. Identity must be narrow and lived, not broad and imagined. One clear state practiced daily is stronger than 10 ideas spoken once. If you choose "I am disciplined," discipline must show up in small actions when no one is watching. If you choose "I am calm," calm must appear under pressure. The body learns through repetition, not inspiration. Over time, identity stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. And when identity feels natural, reality aligns without effort. This is why manifestation appears effortless to some and impossible to others. It is not about luck or secret techniques. It is about congruence between self-image and behavior. The world mirrors back what you consistently demonstrate, not what you occasionally desire. Identity shapes the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you tolerate discomfort, the way you respond to setbacks, and these patterns accumulate into outcomes that look like fate but are actually self-programming in motion. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the container that protects energy. When something is spoken outwardly, it becomes exposed to opinions, doubts, comparisons, and expectations. Each of these pulls attention away from embodiment and redirects it toward performance. The moment a person feels the need to explain who they are becoming, their focus shifts from living the change to defending it. This is how power leaks before it has time to mature. True manifestation requires containment. Just as a seed must remain buried in darkness before it breaks the surface, an inner decision must remain protected before it can express itself through results. When you speak too early, you invite interference. Other people project their limitations, their fears, and their experiences onto your intention. Even encouragement can weaken resolve by replacing internal certainty with external approval. Silence removes dependency. It forces commitment to be proven through action rather than words. Embodiment is the language reality understands. Reality does not listen to declarations, it observes behavior. If someone claims discipline but continues to negotiate with comfort, the claim has no weight. If someone claims confidence but seeks reassurance, the body reveals the truth before the mouth does. Embodiment is alignment between inner decision and outer action. It cannot be faked for long. It is built in private moments where choice appears and no audience exists. Silence strengthens embodiment because it removes shortcuts. When no one knows what you are becoming, there is no image to protect. There is only the work. This creates honesty. You cannot hide behind words or identity labels. Either the action is done or it is not. Either the reaction is controlled or it is not. Silence exposes inconsistency to yourself before it is exposed to the world, and this awareness accelerates growth. There is also a psychological reason silence amplifies power. The human nervous system seeks coherence. When you speak an intention, the brain releases a small sense of completion, similar to progress. This can reduce urgency. When you remain silent, the tension between intention and action remains unresolved, and that tension fuels execution. Silence keeps the internal pressure alive until it is released through results. Many people believe being seen creates accountability, but for inner transformation, visibility often creates performance. Performance is fragile because it depends on maintaining an image. Embodiment is resilient because it depends on standards. Standards do not need applause. They require discipline. When you stop announcing goals, you stop bargaining with identity. You either live it or you confront the gap directly. Silence also sharpens perception. When you are not busy explaining yourself, you observe more. You notice how your body reacts under stress. You catch the moment before impulsive speech. You feel the urge to justify, to defend, to impress, and you learn to sit with it instead of acting on it. This builds internal authority. The less you seek validation, the more stable your sense of self becomes. Manifestation through silence does not mean isolation. It means selectivity. You may still interact, work, and contribute, but without leaking intention. You allow results to introduce you, instead of introductions trying to predict results. When outcomes appear without explanation, they carry weight. People trust consistency more than claims. Respect is not requested, it is observed. Embodiment takes time, and time requires protection. Silence is that protection. It creates a boundary around focus, energy, and direction. Within that boundary, repetition occurs. Habits form. Identity stabilizes. Once identity stabilizes, expression becomes natural and effortless. At that point, speaking is no longer risky because words are supported by evidence, and evidence no longer needs defense. Desire creates distance. The moment you say you want something, you confirm that it is not yours. This distance keeps the mind in a state of chasing rather than creating. Chasing drains energy because it places fulfillment in the future, while the body always lives in the present. When the present is filled with lack, the nervous system remains restless, scanning for what is missing instead of stabilizing around what is already claimed. Ownership changes the relationship completely. When you identify with a state rather than pursuing it, behavior adjusts immediately. I want confidence allows hesitation to continue. I am confident demands congruence. The body straightens, the breath deepens, the voice steadies. These are not conscious tricks, they are automatic responses to identity. Ownership removes negotiation. You no longer ask whether you feel ready. You act according to who you have decided to be. Most people remain trapped in desire because it feels safe. Wanting carries no responsibility. It allows imagination without accountability. Ownership, on the other hand, requires proof. The moment you say, "I am," you are obligated to behave in alignment. This is uncomfortable because it exposes inconsistency. The ego prefers desire because it preserves comfort. The disciplined mind chooses ownership because it creates results. The shift from wanting to being also alters how the mind processes obstacles. When you want something, obstacles feel like rejection. When you own a state, obstacles become feedback. A person who wants discipline feels discouraged by failure. A person who identifies as disciplined analyzes failure and adjusts. The emotional charge decreases because identity is not threatened by temporary mistakes. Ownership creates stability under pressure. Ownership also simplifies decision-making. Desire multiplies options and indecision. Being narrows choices. If you are a focused person, distractions lose appeal. If you are a calm person, unnecessary conflict feels unnatural. You do not need to force restraint. Restraint becomes a byproduct of identity. This conservation of energy allows momentum to build without burnout. There is a biological component to this shift. The brain learns through repetition and reinforcement. When identity is declared and acted upon, neural pathways strengthen. Each aligned action reinforces the self-image. Over time, what once required effort becomes automatic. This is why ownership feels powerful. It rewires behavior at the level of habit rather than motivation. Desire keeps attention external. You watch others who have what you want and measure yourself against them. Ownership turns attention inward. You measure yourself against your standards. Comparison fades because identity provides direction. This inward orientation increases emotional regulation and reduces reactivity. When your sense of self is internal, external circumstances lose their ability to destabilize you. Many misunderstand ownership as arrogance or denial of reality. In truth, ownership is responsibility. It does not ignore weakness, it confronts it. Saying, "I am disciplined," does not mean you never struggle. It means struggle does not define you. It becomes something to be trained through rather than avoided. Ownership frames challenges as part of the process, not evidence of failure. The moment ownership replaces desire, patience deepens. You are no longer waiting for permission, timing, or validation. You act consistently because your identity requires expression. This consistency compounds into outcomes that appear sudden from the outside but were built quietly over time. Manifestation becomes less about attracting and more about allowing what you already embody to organize your life accordingly. Action is the only language reality responds to, yet most people believe intensity of emotion or strength of intention is enough. They speak powerful words in moments of motivation and then return to familiar habits when discomfort appears. This creates a cycle of excitement followed by disappointment. Reality does not respond to emotional spikes. It responds to repeated behavior. What you do consistently becomes your signal to the world, regardless of what you say you want. Spoken affirmations can inspire, but they cannot replace action. When words are not followed by behavior, the mind learns mistrust. Each time a promise is broken internally, self-belief weakens. Over time, motivation fades not because the goal is wrong, but because the mind has learned that words do not lead to results. Consistent action restores credibility within yourself. When you prove reliability to your own nervous system, confidence grows naturally. Consistency simplifies progress. One small action repeated daily carries more power than dramatic effort done occasionally. The body adapts to rhythm. When effort is predictable, resistance decreases. This is why routines outperform bursts of inspiration. A person who acts a little every day surpasses a person who waits for the perfect mood. Mood is unstable. Rhythm is dependable. Reality also measures consistency through time. A single act shows possibility. Repetition shows identity. Anyone can act disciplined for a day. Few can do it when tired, bored, or unobserved. It is in these moments that reality receives a clear signal. This signal accumulates into opportunity, trust, and momentum. What looks like luck from the outside is often the result of long-term reliability. There is a hidden cost to relying on words instead of action. Words create an illusion of progress. Speaking intentions can momentarily satisfy the desire to change without requiring discomfort. This delays growth. The mind confuses expression with execution. Silence combined with action removes this confusion. Without verbal reinforcement, the only feedback comes from results. Consistent action also regulates emotion. When behavior is stable, emotional volatility decreases. You stop negotiating with feelings and start operating from standards. Standards are not influenced by temporary states. They exist above emotion. This creates inner order. Inner order produces outer clarity. Decisions become faster. Energy stops leaking into doubt. Action trains identity faster than thought. You can think about being disciplined all day, but one disciplined action teaches the body more than 100 ideas. The body remembers what it does, not what it imagines. This is why physical posture, breath, and movement play such a role in mental states. Action anchors intention into the nervous system. Consistency also builds resilience. When action becomes habitual, setbacks lose their power. You do not collapse after failure because action is no longer dependent on success. You continue because that is what you do. This detachment from outcome paradoxically improves results. Less emotional weight allows clearer adjustment and persistence. Many people wait for confidence before acting. In reality, confidence is the result of action kept over time. Each completed action becomes evidence. Evidence compounds, belief strengthens. This loop creates self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation of all manifestation. Without it, the mind constantly searches for external reassurance. Reality does not care about explanations, reasons, or excuses. It responds to patterns. When your pattern changes, your life changes. When action becomes consistent, opportunities align, people respond differently, and circumstances reorganize themselves around your reliability. This is not coincidence, it is consequence. Action repeated daily becomes a force that reshapes identity, environment, and outcomes simultaneously. The mind reacts before awareness arrives. This is not a flaw, it is a survival mechanism. Thoughts appear automatically, emotions surge instantly, and the body prepares to act before reason has time to speak. Most people live at the mercy of this system, mistaking reaction for truth and emotion for command. As long as reactions lead behavior, life remains unpredictable and easily influenced by external events. Control does not mean suppression. Suppression creates internal conflict and builds pressure that eventually explodes. Control means observation without obedience. When you notice a thought without following it, you create distance. In that distance, choice appears. Choice is power. The ability to pause between stimulus and response determines whether you live consciously or mechanically. Reaction drains energy. Every impulsive response consumes attention, emotional fuel, and time. Anger, defensiveness, and anxiety scatter focus. When the mind is constantly reacting, it cannot sustain direction. Manifestation requires direction. Direction requires stability. Stability begins with the regulation of reaction. The body is the gateway to this control. You cannot command the mind directly when it is agitated, but you can regulate the body. Slowing the breath, relaxing the jaw, grounding the feet, and straightening the spine sends signals of safety to the nervous system. When the body feels safe, the mind becomes receptive. Control begins from the physical and moves upward. Awareness is trained through repetition. At first, you notice reactions after they happen. Later, you catch them as they arise. Eventually, you sense them before they fully form. This progression is not theoretical, it is experiential. Each moment of awareness weakens the automatic loop. Over time, reactions lose their grip because they are no longer reinforced by immediate action. Emotional control is not emotional absence. You will still feel anger, fear, and desire, The difference lies in expression. Instead of being driven by emotion, you use emotion as information. Anger reveals boundaries. Fear reveals attachment. Desire reveals direction. When emotion is observed rather than obeyed, it becomes a guide instead of a master. This internal mastery directly affects manifestation. When reactions are uncontrolled, decisions are impulsive and inconsistent. Inconsistency confuses outcomes. When reactions are regulated, behavior becomes steady. Steady behavior creates predictable results. Predictable results create momentum. Momentum shapes reality. Control of reaction also protects identity. Without it, identity fluctuates with mood and circumstance. One insult can collapse confidence. One failure can erase discipline. Reaction-based identity is fragile. Controlled response stabilizes self-image. You remain who you decided to be regardless of external pressure. Silence plays a critical role here. When you stop reacting verbally, you interrupt the emotional cycle. Words often intensify emotion. Silence allows it to pass. In that passing, clarity emerges. Many conflicts dissolve not because they were solved, but because reaction was withheld long enough for perspective to return. The mind seeks stimulation and validation. Reaction feeds both. Control starves them. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The ego resists loss of expression. With time, the discomfort fades and is replaced by composure. Composure is magnetic. It influences others without force. It creates authority without dominance. The foundation of all inner power is this mastery. Without control of reaction, techniques are useless. Affirmations collapse under pressure. Discipline disappears under stress. Control allows every other skill to function. It turns intention into behavior and behavior into outcome. When the mind is no longer dragged by every impulse, it becomes a focused instrument capable of shaping life deliberately rather than responding to it randomly. Direction is diluted when attention is scattered. Many people attempt to change their lives by adopting multiple habits, identities, and goals at the same time. This creates internal noise. Each direction competes for energy, and none receive enough repetition to stabilize. Progress appears slow not because effort is missing, but because focus is divided. Simplicity is not weakness, it is precision. Choosing one state creates coherence. When a single quality is selected and lived daily, the mind and body organize around it. If you choose focus, your environment begins to change. Distractions become visible. Time is protected. If you choose calm, your reactions soften. Conflicts lose urgency. This singular commitment acts as an anchor. It prevents drift. Daily living is where identity is forged. Grand intentions collapse without daily application. One state practiced consistently influences posture, speech, movement, and decision-making. The repetition may feel ordinary, but ordinary repetition builds extraordinary stability. The body learns faster than the intellect. When behavior aligns repeatedly with one chosen state, identity begins to shift from effort to default. Letting results speak removes pressure. When you chase validation, behavior becomes distorted. You rush outcomes, exaggerate progress, or become discouraged when recognition is delayed. When you release the need to announce change, time works in your favor. Quiet repetition compounds without interference. Results appear gradually, then suddenly, without explanation. This approach develops patience. When attention is placed on daily expression rather than future reward, impatience dissolves. You stop asking when change will arrive and focus on whether you are aligned today. This presence increases quality. Quality increases effectiveness. Effectiveness produces results without strain. Living one state also refines self-awareness. Each day becomes a test. Did you embody it under pressure? Did you abandon it for comfort? These moments reveal patterns without judgment. Awareness accelerates adjustment. Adjustment strengthens consistency. Consistency stabilizes identity. Many people fear narrowing their focus because they believe it limits growth. In reality, depth creates expansion. Mastery in one area strengthens confidence across others. Discipline practiced in one domain spills into others. Calm cultivated in one situation spreads. Focus trained once can be redirected later. The mind learns how to learn. Results are the only honest feedback. They remove illusion. They confirm alignment. When life begins responding differently, when people react differently, when opportunities shift, there is no need to explain. Explanation is for doubt. Results carry certainty. Silence protects this process. The less you speak about what you are becoming, the more energy remains for becoming it. Identity forms through action, not announcement. The world responds when change is undeniable. Living one state daily is not restrictive, it is grounding. It creates a center. From that center, movement becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Over time, the chosen state no longer feels chosen. It feels natural. When something becomes natural, it no longer requires effort to maintain. At that point, the state expresses itself automatically through behavior, and behavior continues to shape outcomes without conscious effort. Everything you seek is already responding to who you choose to be. Manifestation is not about forcing outcomes or convincing the world. It is about alignment between identity, action, and inner control. When you claim a state through IAM, protect it with silence, and prove it through consistent behavior, reality reorganizes itself naturally. Control of reaction keeps your direction steady, and focus on one lived state prevents energy from scattering. Do not chase results. Allow them to emerge as evidence of discipline practiced daily. When identity is clear and actions are consistent, life has no choice but to follow.